biggest challenge that he has is I think this is an opportunity. He could turn people off because it will remind people, if they're not energized, it could remind people.
That's what Kristen's saying. Do they feel energy or a pit in their stomach?
And
a persuadable audience.
Right, and you heard J.D. Vance trying to say that Biden is the, the chaos candidate. Well, remember how it felt to govern by tweet, and we sort of, the pit of our stomach. I think that is more likely what we're going to hear and see, and that is going to be a real moment for the Republican Party to ask itself, is this who you want to be? Is Donald Trump who you want to be?
And Kristen, one final question to you. When you look at these polls, we're very early, obviously, but what stands out to you about the lead that Trump currently has?
Well, I think it's important for people to remember that even though Donald Trump is very unpopular with voters in the center, he very well could be reelected president of the United States. That we should not just assume that there's no way we would do this again as a country, right? There is very much a way when I look at these polls because of that dissatisfaction we see with President Biden. And so I think the more interesting question is, when I look at these polls, they actually remind me a little bit, if you look at the favorables in 1992, Americans going, I don't know about this Bill Clinton guy. I'm not really sure about George H.W. Bush. What about a third party? I don't think that's likely, but Americans are not loving what they think of as this rematch of the lesser of two evils.
Which is a fascinating question mark to hit pause on our panel with. Thank you all so much. And let's send it back to you, Wolf.
All right, Aaron. And we're back with our panel here in Washington right before the town hall is about to begin. Jeff Zeleny, what does Trump need to accomplish at this town hall that begins just, 5 minutes or so from now?
Look, I think that the voting does not begin in this primary for at least 7 months. So the primary will not be decided tonight. But he does need to remind New Hampshire voters, who are very important, that he's presidential and he has a command over things. We are not going to see a different Donald Trump. At 76 years old, been president once, lived a long life. He cannot turn a new leaf. But he can sort of change how he's running this campaign. So I do think that it'll be interesting to see how much he uses this as an opportunity to try and reach out and expand his base, because Republicans want to see a winner. So do we see a slightly new and improved version of him or an older version? That's what we will see. But we should remember, this is the beginning of the Republican primary. It's not the end.
A lot of Republicans want him to strike, Jonah, a more balanced tone. Is he capable of that?
Yeah, a lot of professional Republicans would like him to strike a more balanced tone. His super fans want him to be Donald Trump. And I think part of the problem, part of the challenge of trying to reach out to this broader coalition, to reach out to the center, is the primaries haven't started yet. And if one of the things that he's rumored to believe is that abortion is a loser for Republicans, if he starts talking about how abortion is not a priority, all that kind of stuff, it could cost him severely among parts of the coalition that just do not want to hear that.
Yeah, important point. Jamie, what are
But of course, he'll be asked hard questions about this and so many other things. There's so many questions to talk to him about.
What's the most important thing you're going to be looking for?
The exits. No, some people have Trump fatigue. I have Trump Epstein Barr. The prospect of doing another 4 years of this really just, I'm I'm looking for a way out, is what I'm looking for.
And you hear that from voters a lot, the exhaustion out there about this. So, and sort of sick of the drama of him. So we'll see how much he brings.
Are live. Eric Butler, we are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, uopod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I gotta vote for Trump, dude.
It's great here, a lot of fat chicks and a lot of screaming.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate.
Hello. Eric Butler, how are thee?
This is an American day. I don't know why you're doing a British accent, but
Because Lewis is in the intro. British accent.
of course, Lewis Brackpool, a bloke, something like that.
As we stand by for CNN's town hall to start, you and I were chatting a bit earlier how CNN's attempting to remain super down the middle until the very end, though. Somebody there let it slip. They're just waiting for the exits to be over.
It's crazy, dude. He literally says, "Oh, I have Trump." He didn't say TDS. He said something else that was very clear. Oh, I guess it's starting. Should we listen to this?
Yeah, let's listen in. Caitlin Collins.
Campaign unlike any other in the history of U.S. presidential elections. He's the first former president in more than a century to seek a return to the White House,
sucks.
and he is currently leading the Republican field while also facing multiple criminal investigations and an indictment. Just yesterday, he was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation. No questions are off the table, and we
Remind you
agreed
of
to
that
no
before
conditions.
we listen
We're
to
here
him,
to
you
give
guys.
voters the answers that they deserve.
He's a rapist.
Our audience is made up of Republicans and undeclared voters who plan to take part in New Hampshire's Republican primary. They'll get the chance to question the former president directly.
Are we gonna be able to pause
these
this?
voters and the issues that they care about the most.
No,
Help
but we can
decide if
mute
former
it.
President Trump will get a second chance to take on President Joe Biden. Please welcome the front.
Okay. Well, can I just
Rob from Huey Media here.
Yo,
Rob.
all right. Shout out Rob from Huey Media. Big, big
There he
name
is.
list. Thank you for coming on. But can I just say, in that preface, in that little preview, that little pregame that they were talking about, they say, "Oh well, the voters are fatigued. The voters are fatigued. The drama. It's like that's the drama you created. That's
Rob says he can't hear anybody. That's still true, Rob? Can't hear anybody. I don't know what he's doing.
Oh, wait. I hear you now.
There we go. We can hear him now.
I hear him.
Cool.
Does he hear us?
Yeah, I hear you all. I guess I needed to hit a button, and I never hit it, so everyone was just
Well,
muted.
Very professional stuff we got going on here.
You can tell he's from the East Coast because he says button.
I don't know. Your accents are you're.
I don't have an
unreliable.
accent, Eric. The
Well,
Great
because you're
Lakes
Canadian,
area.
so you think that I say something with a California accent, which doesn't really exist, and then some new.
California accent. What about a Valley girl? What about that accent, Eric?
Well, people from New York swear I'm from the South. People from California think I'm from New York. It's all a complete and total mess. And now I'm in the.
All right, we
desert.
have Trump. I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a Trump.
Oh, all right.
How's the
Turn her
volume?
up. Turn it up.
I don't hear
Mute.
anything.
I don't hear anything. It's very disappointing. What was the first question? We missed it.
There we go.
A lot of the people in this audience, and maybe a couple that don't, but most people understand what happened. That was a rigged election.
Talking about the
And
last
it's a
election.
shame that we had to go through it. It's very bad for our country. All over the world, they looked at it, and they saw exactly what everyone else saw. You look, even if you just look recently with the 51 intelligence agents, that made a 16-point difference. If you look at the
Mr.
FBI,
President.
if you
Can't
look at
have
the
them talking about
FBI
that,
and Twitter, they call it Twitter files, made a big difference. If you look at
Mr.
True
President,
the
back
Vote,
to what you just said there, though. It was not
Cut
a rigged
him-
election. It
cut
was not
him
a
off from
stolen
saying that,
election. You and your supporters lost more
CIA
than 60
got
court
caught
cases on the
trying to
election. It's
push
been
people to
nearly
sign that
2.5
letter.
years. Can you publicly acknowledge that you did lose the 2020 election?
let me just go on. If you look at True the Vote, they found millions of votes on camera, on government cameras, where they were stuffing ballot boxes. So with all of that, I think it's a shame that what happened. I think it's a very sad thing for our country. I think it's a very sad thing, frankly, for the world, because if you look at what's gone to our country has gone to hell. Our borders are bad. Our military has been bad. You look at the taxes, you look at inflation, what's happened
Voting
to
is
inflation.
completely
It's just
fake,
destroying our
okay?
country. We've really become, in many ways, a third world country. And it's very sad what's happened in this administration. And it's something that will turn around on day one. We were energy independent. Now energy is at a level that we've never had to pay before. Nobody can afford to continue to pay what's happening with energy. But we were energy independent. We were getting out of Afghanistan with strength and with dignity. And instead we got out, we looked like fools, probably the most
And Mr.
embarrassing
President,
moment in the history of our country.
We have a lot of questions about the economy and foreign
Good.
policy tonight, but what you just said there, Republican officials debunked those claims
host, Dylan
about
Mulvaney,
fraudulent
everybody.
ballots. We want to give you a chance tonight.
Who?
Republican officials in Georgia
Name
and
one.
every single
Name one.
state. There is no your own election officials, Mr. President. So we
People
wanted to give
were
you a
afraid
chance.
to take on the issue. But we have a big problem in this country. We have
we wanted to give you a
elections.
chance to
We have
acknowledge the
elections
results.
that were horrible. If
like
you look
Piers
at what
Morgan.
happened in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, if you
apologize.
look at what happened in Detroit, Michigan,
Wisconsin.
if you look at what happened in Atlanta, millions of votes. And all you have to do is take a look at government cameras. You'll see them. People going to 28 different voting booths to vote, to put in 7 ballots apiece.
But
I mean,
Mr.
and
President,
they're all
I
on
have
camera.
to stop you there because there is no evidence of that. Your own election officials testified to that and have said that Republicans in these states
Other people
did
said
In
this,
Georgia,
though.
there were multiple recounts, including a hand recount. We have questions about the claims that you're making tonight from voters on this topic. I want to bring in Scott Dustin from Concord. He works in insurance litigation. He's an undeclared voter. That's what they call independents here in New Hampshire, as you know. He did vote for you in 2020. Scott, what's your question for the president?
Hi, President
Hi, Scott.
Trump. Welcome back to New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your
Clearly
run
didn't
for
write that
president?
Will I suspend, excuse me, what?
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your run for president?
Yeah, unless I see election fraud. If I see election fraud, I think I have an obligation to say it. And you know what we went through a short while ago has really put our country in a big problem. I hope to do that. I hope we're going to have very honest elections. We should have voter ID. We should have one-day elections. We should have paper ballots instead of these mail-in votes. But the answer is yes, and I hope that it's going to be very straight up, because if it's going to be straight up, we're going to win the election.
So you will suspend talk to his question
could
about
ask
the
that
2020
question.
election on the campaign
Well,
trail?
I guess we're going to just win. We're at a point now. We're getting so close. Let's just win it again
I
and
really
straighten
wish
out
we
our
could
country.
pause this.
One other question on this.
Called live entertainment, Eric.
But you could ask that to
When you
anybody
talked
on
about
the left in
2020 election results in the past,
2016.
you once suggested terminating the Constitution. Do you stand by those comments?
No. You were able to do certain things. I'm not talking about terminating the Constitution. I'm talking about cherishing the Constitution. The Constitution says that we're supposed to have legal and well-maintained and well-looked-at elections, and we didn't have that. I cherish our Constitution, but we have to live up to the Constitution. We weren't living up to the Constitution.
I was just saying there's no evidence of that election fraud. You did once
You're
tweet.
supposed to say that, but I'm glad you say that. But look, that
the
was a
truth, Mr.
horrible
President.
election. That was a horrible election, and unless somebody's very stupid, and I know you very well, you're not stupid at all, but you perhaps are given an agenda, or you have an agenda. Look, we have to have honest elections
I
in our
haven't
country.
seen it, therefore
We have open
didn't
borders.
happen.
You look at what's happening. I mean, we have elections, we have open borders. Look at what's happening on our southern border. Millions and millions of people are coming here. They're being released from prisons. They're being released from mental institutions. And we have millions of people pouring into our country. And now they're getting rid of Title 42, which I put on, which kept people out that were sick and
Mr.
had
President, we have a lot of
problems.
questions about immigration to get to tonight. Obviously, that's a big topic, especially given what's expected to happen tomorrow. But I want to talk about the influence you have over your voters. It's very clear that you are very influential over them. You have a lot of impact. I've been to many of your rallies and seen it up close, which raised a lot of questions about the influence that we saw that you had on them on January 6th and your supporters when they attacked the Capitol.
God.
Do you have any regrets about your actions on January 6th?
Piers Morgan, disavow.
Well,
Do you want to apologize?
January 6th was, again, we go back to it, but January 6th had to do with the fact that hundreds of thousands of people, and you don't see the pictures very often. A lot of the people here probably were there. January 6th, it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. That was prior to the
I was
walk
not
down
there.
to the Capitol building. I don't think, and I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people. I've never spoken to a crowd as
Enrique
large as
Terrio
this.
was not
and
there.
that was because they thought the
Ray
election
Epps
was
was
rigged.
not there.
And they were there proud. They were there with love in their heart. That was an unbelievable, and it was a beautiful day. And what I was asked to do, I wasn't involved in it very much. I was asked to come in. Would I make a speech? I made a speech. I said, walk peacefully and patriotically, many different things. In fact, I brought a list of things. I don't want to bore the audience, but we can go sentence after sentence after sentence of things I said and things I put out. One of the big problems was that Nancy Pelosi, Crazy Nancy as I affectionately call her, Crazy Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington were in charge, as you know, of security. And they did not do their job.
They're not in charge of the National Guard. You're in charge of the National Guard.
Well, I offered them National Guard. I said, we'll give you soldiers, we'll give you National Guard, we'll give you whatever you want. And they turned me down.
You're
and in
acting
fact,
defense
she turned me down.
secretary.
She turned me down in writing. They turned me down.
But your acting defense secretary, Chris Miller, at the time, he says you never gave a formal order to deploy the National Guard. But when it came to that day,
just the opposite. Chris Miller wrote a book, and he's a fantastic guy, and he was ready to go. They turned him down. If you look, the mayor of Washington, D.C., lovely lady, she said, we don't want it. We don't like the look. Nancy Pelosi said, oh, we don't like the look. If they would have had I offered them 10,000 soldiers. I said, it could be 10, it could be more, but I offered them specifically 10,000 soldiers. If they would have taken 500 soldiers, you wouldn't have had the problem. They turned it down. And if you look at the Inspector General report, he says they turned it down. They made a terrible mistake.
Well, Chris Miller was your acting defense secretary. He says you never gave that order. But back to what happened on that day.
She just said the N-word there.
He has testified that, Mr.
He
President.
did not say that.
But you said you weren't very involved that day. You did tell your supporters to come to Washington. You tweeted about it, about
True,
that
of
speech
course.
that happened on the rally.
Am I allowed to say that?
When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them
Why would she
to
bring
go
this
home?
up?
I don't believe it did. Oh, let me pull it out. I have to pull it out.
I've got to pull it out. This bitch.
Why would she do this knowing that we can talk about the summer of love? We can talk about George Floyd 2.0 happening
January
right
5th,
now.
the day before, I said, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. Stay peaceful. This was the day before, and this was in the form of Twitter. Now I use Truth Social. I think it's far superior, okay? I hope everybody's on Truth. If you look January 6th, this is before 2:30. I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. This is right after, as it was happening. But what happened is they took it down. I don't know why. I think they took it down because it was so good. They didn't like it being up there. I am asking, and we didn't know until I got it back, because now I have 90 million people waiting for me to go back, but I'm on Truth and I'm staying on Truth. Listen, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violation. We want no violation. We want no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. That was at 2:30. That was very early.
Mr. President, I looked at the same timeline that you did.
No, I know, but you didn't report that. You know why? Because it was taken down.
We did report it. I was reporting that day.
It was taken down and it wasn't.
But when it was clear to you that they were not being peaceful, you saw them rushing the Capitol, breaking windows. They were hitting officers with flagpoles, tasing them, beating them up. When it was clear they weren't being peaceful, why did you wait 3 hours to tell them to leave the Capitol? They listened to you like no one else. You know that.
They do. I agree with that. But
So why didn't you tell them to go home sooner?
Nancy Pelosi and the mayor are in charge. I assume they were able to do their job. They weren't.
But
And
Pelosi's
it kicked
not in charge of Capitol
And if you
security.
remember, I made a video right outside the Oval Office in the Rose Garden. And I'm very proud of that video. I didn't have a script. I don't need scripts like a certain person that's in there right now.
The video? It came out much later after they had already attacked you.
So clearly they have the Trump audience at CNN, right?
And it was a beautiful video, and it said, I mean, I don't want to read it all, but you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order.
Him imitating himself.
We have to respect our great people of law and order. We love the people of law and order. We can't play into the hands of these other people. We have to have peace. Please go home. I said that.
Referring
You know
to the
what
law
they did?
and order there,
They took
Mr.
that
President.
down, and you know, to this day, it hasn't been put up. And the reason is it's so good and so conclusive that all of this nonsense and all of the tens of millions of dollars that have been spent are just wiped away with this one. And they've never put it back up. They had another one that they did the same
But that
thing.
video that you referenced there, it wasn't posted until 4:17 p.m.
No, I'll tell
they
you,
breached the Capitol at 2 p.m.
That video was
Mr.
posted.
President.
So scripted.
4:17
Yeah,
p.m.
actually a little bit before that.
Right, so
But
that's my question.
excuse
Because
me.
in that 3 hours, over
Excuse
140
me, it was
officers
posted
were
after the
injured.
first one I just read, though, and that was at 2 o'clock.
But I think the reason the timeline is so critical here, because
So forget what I
going back
said.
to your influence, in
Here's
that
another
3
one I
hours,
posted.
over 140 officers were injured that day.
And
Well, now
a
they care
person
about the
named
cops.
Ashley
They love
Babbitt
the
was
cops
killed.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? She was killed, and
Even
she shouldn't have been
Collins does.
killed. And that thug that killed her, there was no reason to shoot her. At blank range, cold blank range, they shot her, and she was a good person. She was a patriot.
One
There was
person
no
who was
reason.
there-
There was no reason, and he went on television to brag about the fact that he killed her.
The officer was not bragging about the fact that he
Oh,
killed
he
her.
was
But
bragging.
one person who was at the
He was
Capitol
bragging.
that day, as you know, was your vice president, Mike Pence, who says that you endangered his life on that day.
I don't
Do you
think he was in
feel-
any danger.
Mr. President,
None of the
do you
politicians
feel that you
are.
owe him an apology?
No, because he did something wrong. He should have put the votes back to the state legislatures, and I think we would have had a different outcome. I really do.
But he doesn't have the authority to do that, as you know.
Democratic norms.
The vice president does not have the authority to
Okay,
reject
are you
those,
ready? Let's
those
have this
election
one out
results.
just now, because it's interesting. Let's keep it interesting, right? I like Mike Pence very much. He's a very fine man. He's a very nice man. He made a mistake. His lawyer said, you cannot move. I called him the human conveyor belt. I said, even if the votes, I talked to his lawyer, even if the votes are absolutely fraudulent, he can't say, yes, sir, he can't send back. And the Democrats played it, and the rhinos played it. And then the election was over. They told him he couldn't do it. And Mike said to me, I can't do it. The lawyers told me I can't do it. They can't do it. But the lawyers were wrong, because right after the election, they all met, the rhinos and the Democrats, and they worked out a plan to make sure that future vice presidents don't do what I said you could do.
That's not what happened. You're referring to the Electoral Count Act.
this woman
I've read that. There is no authority.
No,
Legal
excuse
experts,
me.
including Republican legal experts,
Other
say that
people
he
have
does
said,
not have that
though-
authority, Mr.
Caitlin,
President. But I want to
why
move
did
on.
they change
I've
the
heard
law
people say
then,
things.
saying that you can't do it?
They didn't change the law. They strengthened the law because they were worried about
Oh, they
presidents
strengthened it,
exploiting.
meaning you could do it.
That's not what it means.
Thank you.
They strengthened the law
Mike
because they
had
were
the right to
worried.
do it. They convinced him he didn't, and it was a horrible thing for our country. If you would have sent those votes back to Georgia, Pennsylvania, and other states, Wisconsin, which if you look at Wisconsin,
yeah.
they virtually admitted now that the election was rigged. If
They
you
have
would have
not
sent
admitted
those
that,
votes
Mr.
back to
President.
Time
many of those
Magazine
states,
admitted it.
they would not come back in the affirmative. And remember what I said, and you just said it pretty much. You admitted what I said was right.
I
They
did
said he
not.
didn't have the right to do it, and he did have the right to do it, and that's why they changed the law, taking that right away.
I should note that your campaign paid for a recount that happened in Wisconsin. It actually had more votes for President Biden by the end of it. But I want to move on to Wayne Byer. He's a retired attorney from
By the
North
way,
Conway.
so
who
many
is-
illegal votes were cast in Wisconsin, and if you look in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, they had so many illegal votes, they didn't even know what to do with them. You're absolutely wrong
Mr.
about
President,
that.
there weren't any fraudulent votes in Wisconsin. I do want to get to the audience, though. We have questions
knows
for
There were
you
no
from the audience.
fraud.
Wayne Byer is
There
a
were
retired attorney
zero,
from North Conway.
not even
He has
anything
previously
by
served in
mistake. She
Republican
knows there were
administrations. He
zero.
volunteered for the Republican Party in the 2022
Wild to
midterms. He
claim.
voted for you in 2020. What's your question for the president, Wayne?
Thank you for coming, Mr. President.
Thank you, Wayne.
My question to you is, will you pardon the January 6 rioters who were convicted of federal offenses?
I am inclined to pardon many of them. I can't say for every single one,
Notice
because a
the
couple of them
part where it said
probably they
rioter.
got out of control. But when you look at Antifa, what they've done to Portland, and if you look at Antifa, look at what they've done to Minneapolis and so many other
could just
places.
go to San Francisco.
Look at what they did to
don't even have to talk
Seattle
about Antifa.
and BLM. Many people were killed. These people, I'm not
He's right.
trying to justify anything. But you have two standards of justice in this country, and what they've done, and I love that question, because what they've done to so many people is nothing. And then what they've done to these people, they've persecuted these people. And yeah, my answer is, I am most likely, if I get in, I will most likely, I would say it will be a large portion of them. They did and it'll be very early on. And they're living in hell right now.
So when it comes
they're
to
living in
pardons-
hell. and they're policemen, and they're firemen, and they're soldiers, and they're carpenters and electricians, and they're great people. Many of them are just great people.
Mr. President, one of the people who was convicted was a former policeman, but he was convicted of attacking a police officer, I should note. But when you said you are considering pardoning a large portion of those charged with crimes on January 6th, does that include the 4 Proud Boys members who were charged and convicted of seditious conspiracy?
I don't know. I'd have to look at their case, but I will say in Washington, D.C., you cannot get a fair trial. You cannot. Just like in New York City, you can't get a fair trial either.
Speaking of New
Arsenio
York,
Hall,
I
for
want to
those
ask
who
about
don't
a significant verdict that was reached yesterday. I know this is something you want to weigh in on as well.
Now you are
Manhattan
a
jury
rapist.
found that
Sure.
you sexually abused the writer E. Jean Carroll and defamed her. You've denied this, but what
As
do
you
you
can
say
see,
to
I'm at
voters who say it
Bergdorf right now.
disqualifies you from being president?
Well, there aren't too many of them because my poll numbers just came out and they went up. Okay. I think I'm the only person in history who had a charge like that. And usually you leave office, you say, I'm sorry, but I'm going to back home. I'm back home to my family and everything. I'm going to be resigned. My poll numbers went up, and they went up with the other fake charge, too. Because what's happening is they're doing this for election interference. This woman, I don't know her. I never met her. I have no idea who she is. I had a picture taken years ago with her and her husband, nice guy, John Johnson. He was a newscaster, very nice man. She called him an ape. Happens to be African American. Called him an ape.
Oh, my
the judge
God.
wouldn't allow us to put that in. Her dog or her cat was named Vagina. The judge wouldn't allow to put that in. All of these things. But with her, they could put in anything. Access,
This
Hollywood.
was a jury
put in
of
anything.
9 people who found
That's right.
you liable of sexual abuse.
In New York.
Do you think that will deter
Doesn't
women
matter
from
who
voting
was
for
on the
you?
jury.
No, I don't think so, because I think the whole thing, just so you understand, ready? I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. This woman said, I met her at the front door of Bergdorf Goodman, which I rarely go into, other than for a couple of charities. I met her in the front door. She was about 60 years old, and this is like 22, 23 years ago. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. I was immediately attracted to her, and she was immediately attracted to me. And we had this great chemistry. We're walking into a crowded department store. We had this great chemistry, and a few minutes later, we end up in a room, a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, right near the cash register. And then she found out there were locks on the door. So she said, I found one that was open. She found one. She learned this at trial. She found one that was open. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes, you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was
really
married
looking
then or
good
not.
here.
John Johnson, I feel sorry for you, John Johnson.
Mr. President, can I
But
add to this?
think of it.
This is why
I know
he
you're
won
recounting what she
2016.
said, but
Just
Mr.
for
President,
wisdom.
Let me just, if I could, because you asked the question.
This was a
just so
jury,
you understand,
though.
if I was walking in at the because I was very famous then, and I owned the Plaza Hotel right next door, and I owned buildings around it, I'm not going into a dressing room of a crowded department store. Then I say, if she was being raped, and by the way, they said she wasn't raped. Okay, that was her charge. She wasn't.
They found that you sexually abused her.
No, what? Say what? They did. They said he didn't rape her. And
They did
I
not say
didn't do
that he
anything else either. You know what? Because I have no
this
idea
woman
who the
is
hell she is.
despicable.
But Mr.
I
President,
don't know who this woman
can I
is.
ask you, given your recounting
I
your
don't know
version?
who, and I tell you this.
But, Mr.
Are
President,
you ready?
can I
and I
ask
swear on
you
my
because-
children, which I'd never do. I have no idea who this woman. This is a fake story, made up story. We had a horrible Clinton-appointed judge. He was horrible. He allowed her to put everything in. He allowed us to put nothing in.
Mr. President,
this is a
you're
fake
recounting your version of
story.
events here right now to the audience. You referenced the trial. You did not go to the trial and actually
That's right.
testify. Do you wish that you had
No,
testified?
it wouldn't have made a difference. This was a rigged deal. This was my lawyer said, sir, you don't have to do it. I actually said, I think I should. It would be respectful. They said, sir, don't do it. This is a
Trump
fake story, and you don't want to
invisible
give it credibility.
One
That's
thing
why I
you-
didn't go.
Accordion.
One thing you did do in this.
And I swear, and I've never done that, and I swear to, I have no idea who the hell, she's a
Mr.
whack
President,
job.
you did not testify in person in this trial. There was a taped deposition of you from October in it. You defended the comments that you made on that Access Hollywood tape about being able to grab women how you want.
We're at the
Do you
top
stand
of
by
the
those
order.
comments?
We're
I
batting at
said,
the
if
top
you're
of the order.
famous and rich, or whatever I said, but I said, if you're a star, you
Going
are,
back to
and
that?
I said, women let you. I didn't say you grabbed. I said
2009,
women let. You know,
whatever
you
it
didn't
was.
use that word. But if you look, women let you. Now, they said, will you take that back? I said, look, for a million years, this is the way it's been.
Women are selling their buttholes
I want to
on
be
OnlyFans
honest.
for $5.
This is the way it's been. I can take it back if you'd like to, but if you're a famous person, if you're a star, and I'm not referring to myself, I'm saying people that are famous, people that are
You
stars,
were asked in the deposition,
people
do you
that are
consider
rich,
yourself to be a star, and
people
you
that are
said yes.
powerful, they tend to do pretty well in a lot of different ways, okay? And you would like me to take that back? I can't take it back because it happens to be true. I said it's been true for 1 million years, approximately 1 million years, perhaps a little bit longer than that.
So you stand by those comments?
Well, I don't want to lie.
Mr. President, we have a lot of
here's what
questions.
she wants
Mr.
me to say.
President, let's
A
get to
rich
the
and
audience
famous
questions
person
tonight.
has no advantage over anyone else. Well, you do have an advantage. And I say unfortunately, but that's the way it is.
You said fortunately or unfortunately,
Well,
but Mr.
fortunately or
President, we have a lot of
unfortunately for
audience
her.
questions to get to tonight. I want to go back to the audience. We've got Danielle Rieger. She
got a good
works as an
memory,
oral
I know
surgery
that.
assistant.
Something.
She's a Republican activist from Derry. She was a New Hampshire delegate for you in 2020.
Wow,
What's your question?
misjudging her, Eric.
Hi, thank you so much for coming to New Hampshire to
you.
answer our questions. My question is regarding the economy. Over the past 2 years, we have seen the prices for everything skyrocket. From food to gas to utilities and insurance costs, many people's bills are up several $100s a month, including mine. If elected president again, what is the first thing you would do to help bring down the cost to make things more affordable?
Drill, baby, drill. You know what that means. So, we were energy independent. We were soon going to be energy dominant. And nobody had ever done what I did. We got oil down to $1.87. Actually, it fell lower than that in some cases. We had to save the oil companies. The price was getting so. We were doing incredibly. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country, probably the greatest economy in the history of the world. We were energy independent, soon to be energy dominant. We were going to be bigger than Russia and Saudi Arabia put together ×2. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other nation. And these stupid fools ended it. And energy went from $1.87 and even lower for gasoline, for a car. They went from $1.87 to $5, $6, $7, $8, and even $9. And your electricity bills went through the roof, your heating bills went through the roof. And that's what started inflation. And it hasn't stopped because people are paying now for bacon and for eggs and for the 2 and 3 times what it was just a little while ago. We created the greatest economy in history. A big part of that economy was got you the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country, bigger than the Reagan cuts, bigger than any. And also, Caitlin, also, as you know, we got the biggest regulation and regulatory cuts. This place was rocking, and then we were given a gift from China, and China paid a big price. And let me tell you something, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes from China, but prior to COVID coming in, and then I rebuilt the economy again, a second time. But we had, prior to COVID coming in as from China, from Wuhan, which I said it came from Wuhan. Everybody said, oh, you're wrong about that. You're wrong. It came from Wuhan. I said it right from day one. So we had the greatest economy in the world. Here's the story. They made energy so high, and energy is all invasive. It is massive as an industry and as a cost. It lifted everything.
Mr. President, staying on the
donuts, no matter what you did, and we had inflation, the likes of which I guess we haven't had, as I said, for 52 years, but I think more than that. We had no inflation. We had the lowest energy prices we've had in decades. This country was rocking and rolling. And by the way, we had the most secure border in the history of our country.
Mr. President, we
and now we
have more questions on the economy. I want to make sure we get to all of those. As you know, the U.S. right now could be just 3 weeks away from defaulting on its debt. That could mean millions of jobs lost, people not getting their Social Security payments. People believe it would put the U.S. economy into a recession. On that topic, I want to bring in Marta Cervella, a student here at St. Anselm. She is an undeclared voter who did not vote in 2020. Marta, what's your question?
Hi, Mr. President.
Hi, thank you.
So my question is, what do you think about the United States' current debt situation, and how can we move forward?
Such an important question. So we're at $33 trillion, a number that nobody ever thought possible. Yeah. When we had our economy rocking and rolling just prior to COVID coming in, like literally we were making a fortune. And oil, we were going to make so much money from oil, we were going to start paying off debt. But then with COVID coming in, we had to do other things. We had to keep this country alive.
I don't know
we're
if I
so
believe
serious.
that, though.
But we have to get the country back. We have to lower energy prices. We have to lower interest rates. Interest rates are through the roof. Energy has to come down. It all has to come down, and we have to start paying off debt. But when we have a debt limit, and they use that very seriously. They came in, Schumer came in with Nancy Pelosi, and they were using it. We'll violate it. We'll do whatever. They talked a whole lot different than they do right now. I say to the Republicans out there, congressmen, senators, if they don't give you massive cuts, you're going to have to do a default. And I don't believe they're going to do a default because I think the Democrats will absolutely cave. Because it's better than what we're doing right now. Because we're spending money.
Clear, Mr. President, the U.S. should, if the White House does not agree to the spending cuts Republicans
Well,
are
you might
demanding.
as well do it now because you'll do it later. Because we have to save this country. Our country is dying. Our country is being destroyed by stupid people, by very stupid people.
You once said that using the debt ceiling as a negotiating wedge just could not happen. You said that when you were in the
That's
Oval
when
Office.
I was president.
So why is it different now that you're out of office?
Because now I'm not president.
The U.S. defaulting would be massively
Well, you
consequential
don't know.
for everyone in this room, for all
You
Americans.
don't know. It's psychological. It's really psychological more than anything else.
They want
and
to
it could
do this
be
so they can
bad.
just
It could
keep
be maybe
spending more
nothing.
money.
Maybe
That's
it's
the
you
obvious
have a bad
thing.
week or a bad day. But look, you have
More
to
money for
cut
Ukraine.
your costs. We're spending $7 trillion on, much of it on nonsense. $7 trillion.
$7 trillion? It's
on
not even
nonsense.
real.
We've got
I
another
actually
question from a
said,
voter tonight.
get all of
Monopoly
that
money.
money that was wasted, and frankly, the Senate should have never approved it. Get all that money that was wasted, and if they don't get rid of that, you'll have to default. Okay?
Mr.
You'll have to
President,
default.
we've got another voter here tonight.
And by the way, you're going to default eventually anyway, but it's going to be much messier. I don't think you'll have the Republicans hold strong, and they say we want let's say we want $5 off. I really think the Democrats have no choice but to do it. And if I win, they're going to be doing the same thing to me in 2 years. I guarantee you that.
Mr. President,
They're
we've got
gonna play a
another
very
voter
hard
here
ball game,
tonight.
and they did that before.
Bobby Petrino has been waiting very patiently.
Sure.
He's a student at St. Anselm. He's a member of College Republicans. He's an
Bobby
undeclared
Petrino.
voter right now. He supported you in 2020. Bobby, what's your question for President Trump?
Well, Charlie Kirk.
Hi, thank you for coming. This is a bit of a pivot, but with gun violence and mass shootings in the news cycle recently, I'm worried that state governments and the federal government are going to act to repress gun rights. Under your administration, you instructed the Department of Justice and the ATF to ban bump stocks. If elected president again, how would you act not only to defend our Second Amendment rights, but to restore rights that have been taken from us, such as, by example, recently the ATF's ruling on the pistol stabilizing braces?
Yeah, as you know, the bump stocks are actually a very unimportant thing. And NRA, I went with them, and they said it doesn't mean anything. They're actually, all they do is teach you how to shoot very inaccurately. So we did that. There's been nobody that's protected the Second Amendment, as you know, like I have. I protected it through thick and thin, not easy to do. But we have a very big mental health problem in this country. And again, it's not the gun that pulls the trigger, it's the person that pulls the trigger. And we have to protect our Second Amendment. We have to protect our Second Amendment.
Mr. President, you dealt with a lot of mass shootings
Didn't
when
really
you were in
answer the
office.
question.
This year, there have already been more than 200 mass shootings in 2023. If you are reelected, are there any
Let's never
new gun
talk about,
restrictions
like,
that you would
the
sign
ones
into
in
law?
Baltimore.
I would do
Chicago, though. Just never.
numerous
Doesn't
things.
matter.
For instance, schools, we would
Peter.
harden, very much harden. And I also am a very believer. I believe in teachers. I love teachers. I think they're incredible. And they love the children, not quite like the parents, but they love the children in many cases almost as much. Many of these teachers are soldiers, ex-soldiers, ex-policemen. They're people that really understand weapons, and you don't need 5% of the teachers would be more than you could ever have if you're going to hire security guards. But in addition to that, have security guards. You have to harden your entrances. You have to make schools safe, and you can make other places safe. But it is a big mental health problem in this country more than anything else. And remember, we have 700 million guns, 700 million. Many people, if they don't have a gun, they're not going to be very safe. I mean, if they don't have a gun, it gives them security. Now, you need them for entertainment, you need them for hunting, you need them for a lot of different things. But there are people that if they didn't have the privilege of having a gun in some form, many of them would not be alive today. You know, there's a certain country that had a very strict policy on guns, very, very strict.
Which country?
And, Brazil, okay? Brazil, very strict. And the former president of Brazil, and the killing was incredible. They were walking into people's homes and killing people. They had no protection. He said, go out and buy guns. People went out and bought guns, and it went way down. The numbers went way down because they had security. If you look at Chicago, Chicago has the single toughest gun policies in the nation. They are so tough you can't breathe. New York, too, and other places also. All of those places are the worst and most dangerous places. So that's not the answer.
No new restrictions that you would sign
They
if
also
reelected,
act like
Mr.
there
President. I want you to
hasn't
meet
been
Julie
security
Miles, a registered nurse from
and
Merrimack. She's a
metal
Republican who
detectors at,
voted
like,
for you in 2020.
Schools
Julie,
in the
what's your
hood
question for the
since like
president?
the 90s.
Thank you, Mr. President.
They never talk about
I appreciate you answering this question this evening. How do you plan to appeal to women voters in New Hampshire who are concerned about the Dobbs decision and how states may change their laws?
It's such a great question, and it was such a great victory. And,
Are you at risk, lady?
people
You
are
need
starting
to
to
been a
understand
baby?
it now.
Yo, you're like 50
You
years
know
old.
that they
man.
wanted to bring it back to the states, but that was probably the least important
She
part
cares
of that
about her
victory.
daughter's right to
Getting rid of
choose.
Roe v. Wade was an incredible thing for pro-life because it gave pro-life something to negotiate with. Pro-life had
Women
absolutely
voters?
nothing being stuck in
Poor
Roe v.
writing over
Wade to
at CNN.
negotiate with. And now what's
Female
happening, and I see it
voters.
all over, deals are being made, deals are going to be made, and look, everybody that was president wanted to get rid and tried to get rid of Roe v. Wade.
You mean
for 50
Republicans?
years. Republicans. For 50 years, this has been going on. Actually, a couple of Democrats too. But for 50 years, this has been
Imagine
going on.
being married to this
I was
woman.
able to do it, and I was very honored to do it. But by doing
Yikes.
it, things are happening
She
that are
just
very,
sits
very
there
positive.
waiting
And
to snap at you?
I happen to believe in the exceptions, the life of the mother, rape, incest, like Ronald Reagan believed in the exceptions. But I happen to believe that. I think it's frankly important to do that, but a lot of people are, against that. A relatively small number. But the way I look, I think it's very important to say this. I consider the other side to be radical because the other side, under Roe v. Wade and other things, the other side, they're radical because they will. Remember the debate with Hillary Clinton? I said, rip the baby out of the womb at the end of the 9th month. They will kill the baby in the 9th month. If you look at that crazy governor of Virginia from the former governor, where he said, no, the baby will be born, and then we'll decide essentially whether or not to execute the
But,
baby.
Mr. President, can we talk about what you would do if
No, but
you
these are the
if you
radical people.
reelected?
It's not the pro-life people that are
But
radical.
if you are
It's these
reelected and you're
people.
back in the Oval Office and you get legislation to your desk, would you sign a federal abortion ban into law?
What I'll do is negotiate so that people are happy. But the fact that I was able, I'm so proud of it. We put 3 great justices on the Supreme Court. We have almost 300 federal judges on the Supreme Court.
So just to be clear, Mr. President, you would sign a federal abortion ban into law.
I said this. I said
This is just
I wanna
CNN
do what's right.
setting themselves
and
up
we're
so they can
looking,
say, see
and
all
we
the
wanna
things
do
he
what's
said
right
no
for
to.
everybody.
But what's right?
But now, for the first time,
Well, why do you
people
agree to
that
do
are
this?
Pro-life have negotiating capability because you didn't have it before.
Trying to red
They
pill
could
the
kill the baby in the
CNN
9th
bot,
month
I
or
guess.
after the baby was born. Now they won't be able
But
to
I
do
think
that.
this is a really important question for you to answer because this is something every Republican, including those who are running against you for the nomination, are being asked about is would you sign a federal abortion ban into law?
And many of them are going to give you the same answer as I am. First of all, I am honored to have done what I did. And a lot of people said, in 150 years, he's now the most consequential
answer this.
president
Yeah,
because he saved so many lives. And I'm honored to have done it.
The life of the mother
And because of
incest
what I've
and
done,
the
we now
sexual
have a
assault,
great negotiating ability. That's what I do in life. I negotiate. We have a great negotiating ability, and I think we're going to be able to
But
get
what do you
something
mean
done.
negotiating ability? Because the question that Republicans have, and some of your allies on Capitol Hill say that they want to introduce legislation when it comes to banning abortion. If they send it to your desk, would you sign it?
Some people are at 6 weeks. Some people are at 3 weeks,
Where's
2
President
weeks.
Trump?
President Trump is going to make a determination what he thinks is great for the country and what's fair for the country. But the fact that I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade after 50 years of trying, they worked for 50 years. I've never seen anything like it. They worked, and I was so honored to have done it. We are in a very good negotiating position right now, only because of what I was able to do. And remember this,
She's trying to
again,
make
you
him
talk
look like a
about
bad guy.
radicalism. People that will kill a baby in the 9th month or the 8th month or the 7th month or after the baby is born, They're the radicals, not the pro-life.
I just want to give you.
But that's how low the bar
I
is.
just want to give you one more
Is that-
chance, though, because you did not answer whether or not you'd sign
This
a federal
guy's
abortion
evil
ban,
because he won't
or
let you
how
kill
many
your
weeks into
baby.
pregnancy
Maybe.
you believe abortion should be banned.
Yeah, but I've
Can you
given
answer
you,
either
I've
of those
given you
tonight?
the answer probably 4 times already.
Which one
I'm
is it,
looking,
though?
I'm
You have an
looking
answer?
at a solution that's going to work. Very complex issue for the
Look, he
country.
hates women.
You have
He
people
hates
on
women.
both sides of an issue. But we are now in a very strong position. Pro-life people are in a strong position to make a deal that's going to be good and going to be satisfactory for them. If you weren't able to get rid of, you wouldn't even be having a discussion if you weren't able to get rid of Roe v. Wade, which put pro-life in a dead position, a horrible position. They could kill the baby at any time they wanted to, but we did something that nobody thought was doable. And other Republican presidents, and others, by the way, they wanted to get it out. They also wanted to bring it back to the states, but bringing it back to the states is a less important issue
But that's why
than
it's
the
the
issue that
question
we
about a
just talked
federal
about.
abortion ban. You
Well,
did not say yes or no to
It
that. You did
depends
not
what
say how many
it depends
weeks.
what the deal is. Lindsey Graham's
You did not say
a
how
good
many
man.
weeks.
He's got an idea, and a lot of
Lindsey
other people have
Graham
an
is a
idea.
good man.
And I look at all the
Dude,
And a lot
that's
of
a
people will be
ridiculous
curious
statement.
What
I'll
your
make the
idea
right
is on
decision.
that, President Trump. We've got more questions to come for you
Oh,
tonight.
finally
We'll
a
be right back
commercial.
in just a moment.
I should have
Wow.
been
All right,
taking
let's go
notes.
30 seconds each. What I wanted to say before, guys, was just that I think everybody in the U.S. needs to understand that the fact that there's no voter ID, which is something they touched on really early, is actually really insane. Just want to throw that out there. It's so easy to do. You can sign up, you can register online, and then when you go to the voting place, you just show either your registration card, you can show a bill that matches your ID on your address. There's like a bunch of different ways, and then you give it to the nice old lady. She gives you the tiny pencil that's useless in all other parts of life, and you
What's
go,
your
you put
ball
an
thing?
X on who you want to vote for, and then that's it. And what did you guys want to talk about? Eric, you go first.
Well, I just think it's hilarious that in this most recent clip, her position now is that we are trying to turn this man into a bad guy because he will not answer the question on when you are going to be allowed to get rid of your baby. I mean, that's how low the bar has gotten. And every single question, okay, maybe there was one or two that weren't completely left wing, but let's keep in mind that this man was removed off social media. That's how scared. Did anything he say in that 30 minutes or however long we've been watching, was any of that scary enough that it should not be online? I mean, I can go on Twitter right now and look up Babe the Pig Boy. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but there's a whole sect of people that's on Twitter that they have free for all. So this is the man that's so scary. And look, we can have a lot of problems with him. Nobody's perfect. I'm not sitting here and saying that this guy's perfect, obviously, but it's very clear that their agenda, even now under this new management, is to like, oh, they claim is to be a little bit more center or a little bit more organic or a little whatever it is. It's all completely fake. They've just put another band-aid on it. They put another facade on top of it. So now we're pretending even harder that we're going to shoot it straight. And obviously they're not, because this woman is very mad that he won't
All
answer
right.
the question of when you get to bend the baby.
Kaylin Collins is terrible. Rob, what's on your mind?
So I agree with everything that he said in that, so far, like pretty much everything that he said. But my thing is, it's just like, why would he do that with CNN? And this is what I'm going to say is, no one that's still watching CNN at this point, he could say all the perfect things. He could be right about everything. He could unify the country in his speeches, whatever. But there's no one that's still watching that program that's going to be swayed. I just feel like instead of elevating CNN and boosting their ratings, he should have elevated a real network, instead of CNN. And I just don't think that doing this was the right move when there's other networks out there that he could have given a much bigger platform.
And they're going to,
Well, I
and
would
you know,
imagine-
to that point though, you know that they are going to do some very clever editing in the next few days here to make whatever he said that we can watch in full seems normal, seems legit, but it only takes them a couple minutes to chop it up into little tiny pieces and make him look completely crazy, even as they're pretending that they're going to shoot it down the middle now.
100%.
Well, I think that's what they're doing with the questions there, and the chyrons at the bottom is they're setting up each one of those questions so that they can get a no from him? Will you ban do a federal ban on abortion? No. Will you support abortion? No. Will you also what will you do a gun ban of some kind, a rollback of gun laws in some way? No. So they're putting all these questions up so they can clip each one of them and show to people, hey, these are the important issues you guys care about, and Trump isn't going to side with you on abortion, on gun laws, on anything like that. And I think that's what it is. I think they're saving themselves some editing time, really. I think we're back.
Welcome back to CNN's Republican Presidential Town Hall with former President Donald Trump. President Trump, I'd like you to meet Jennifer Simmons. She is a stay-at-home mom and former town selectman from Wyndham. She's a Republican, and she voted for you in 2020. Jennifer, what's your question tonight?
Good evening, Mr. President. Title 42 is expected to expire tomorrow. Our southern border and now our northern border are experiencing record migration. We learned on May 2nd that the Biden administration plans on deploying 1,500 troops to the southern border. Do you agree with deploying troops to the border, and how will a Trump administration slow down the rate of migrants coming across all our borders?
Sure. A very fair question, especially since tomorrow is going to be a day of infamy. You're going to have tens of thousands of people pouring into our country. Even the judge, the judge overruled them when they wanted to terminate it early. And he said, that you better extend this thing. The judge in Texas said, I hope you're going to extend this, but this is my policy that they're letting terminate because they lost in court. They wanted to go earlier. You're going to have millions of people pouring into our country right now at a level that nobody's ever seen before. These people are sick. Anybody that wants this to happen to our country, they're destroying our country, and this should not be allowed to happen. How they're not going to do a version of Title 42 or my Title 42, which was tough. If people are sick and have infectious diseases and lots of other problems, we don't want them being into our country. We have enough problems right now. We have problems like we've never had in the history of our country.
But Mr. President,
our country is being destroyed.
The reason it's ending is because the health policy, the COVID-era pandemic emergency, is coming to an end. That's what Title 42 was. You put it in place because of COVID.
True, but
when it comes to big questions about what your immigration policy would look like if you are reelected, some of your Republican rivals have criticized you for not fulfilling the promises that you made on the campaign trail, like finishing the border wall. So how did voters know that you would get those done if you're reelected?
I did finish the wall. I built a wall. I built hundreds of miles of wall, and I finished it. And then I said, we have to build some more because there are areas like water going through a dam. There are some areas where a lot of people are coming. You close up one, and they come into another. And we started another 100 miles of wall. In fact, I said to my people, if we start this and don't finish it, and then we had a rigged election, I'm sorry to say it.
The election was not rigged, Mr. President. You can't keep saying that all night long.
And so then they took over and they decided not to finish it. It would have taken them 3 weeks. I built hundreds of miles of wall. If we didn't have it, it would be hard to believe it could be any worse. They're just letting people flow into our country. Look, a country has to have borders. There's never been anything like is happening to our country right now.
You built about 52 miles of new wall when you were in office, Mr. President. It wasn't the complete wall. One other thing that with immigration,
no, but I have to respond to that.
With your immigration, it was only about 52 miles of new wall.
This is what she does. I built hundreds of miles. Some of the wall was up there, and it would be laying on the ground, rusted, rotten steel, rusted, rotten wood, and what the radical left crazy Democrats did, if there's a piece of wood laying down, they consider that a wall. I built 30-foot walls that go down 7 feet into the ground. If there was a little piece of wood sitting in the ground, they said, oh, he's not building a wall. We already had a wall. Because this is the game. They're a party of disinformation.
It's not a game, Mr. President. It's about 52 miles of new wall. One other immigration policy you had when you were in office.
I built new wall.
52 miles
for hundreds of miles.
CBP, Mr.
What I did is I replaced other wall that was laying down, that was up and rotting in the ground for 30 years. Some of it was steel that you couldn't even see.
Mr. President, it was only about 52 miles of new wall. But moving on, another immigration policy you had was the zero-tolerance immigration policy that separated families at the border. If you are reelected, are you ruling out instituting that?
Well, when you have that policy, people don't come. If the family hears that they're going to be separated, they love their family. They don't come. So I know it sounds harsh, but if you remember they said I was building prisons for children. It turned out that it was Obama that was building
But
the
would you
prisons for the children.
re-implement that if you're reelected? Is
Well,
that what you're saying?
we have to save our country, all right? We
So it
can't
sounds like
afford,
that's a yes.
No. When you say to a family that if you come, we're going to break you up, they don't come. And we can't afford to have any more. Look at New York City. Look what's happening. They're living in Central Park in New York City. The city is being swamped. Los Angeles is being swamped. Iowa is being swamped. Our whole country is being destroyed. Millions of people are coming into our country.
Los Angeles,
and you know
San
what the
Francisco,
number is going to
Phoenix.
be, in my opinion, by the end of the year? Not the 4 million that you hear and the 3 million and 2. I think it's going to be 15 million people. And in these people, they have no idea where they come from. They come from 129 different countries so far. 120,
Mr.
not just
President,
the 4 that we talked
Just to
about.
put a button on that, it sounds like what you're saying is that you're not ruling out re-implementing that immigration policy. I want to get to another voter. Caitlin Boissonneau is a student here at St. Anselm College. She's a Republican. This will be the first election that she has voted in. What's your question for the president, Caitlin?
Hello, President Trump.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
The current administration has made it clear that we should continue to provide military equipment to Ukraine so that they can defend themselves. Do you support this decision, and how would you deal with the increasing threat posed by Vladimir Putin?
First of all, thank you very much. It's really nice. And it's an important question, so
point out
important.
that girl's name means
because
drink
we're giving
of water.
away so much
Caitlin, drink
equipment.
of
We
water.
don't have ammunition for ourselves right now. We don't have ammunition for ourselves. We're giving away so much. But here's the thing. I have to say it to start off. No longer matters. If I were president, this would have never happened. And even the Democrats admit that. Putin knew it would have never happened. And his pipeline would have never happened. A lot of things would have never happened. But this
Which
would never have
Democrats
happened.
say that,
And
Mr.
all those
President?
dead people, both Russian and Ukrainian, they wouldn't be dead today. And all those cities that are blown up and disintegrated right to the ground, that wouldn't have happened. Okay, now, here's the problem. We've given so far $171 billion. They've given, meaning European Union, which is approximately the same size altogether as our economy. They've given about 20. So we're at 170, let's say, and they're at 20. You don't have to know too much about history to realize, or geography, to realize that they're a little bit more affected than we are, okay? So they've got to put up a lot more money because they're taking advantage of us like every other country did. That's why I ended NAFTA and replaced it with the USMCA, Mexico,
But on
Canada.
this issue, Mr. President, I should know, I don't know any Democrats who have said they don't believe Putin would have invaded if you were president. But her question is, would you continue to give Ukraine money and weapons if you're elected? What's the answer?
I have a very good relationship with President Zelensky because, as you know, he backed me up with the phony impeachment hoax #1 when he said the president didn't do anything wrong. So
That was
I
when
happen
you
to
asked him
like.
for an
So I
investigation in
happen to
exchange
like.
for
Yeah, that's right.
weapons.
And I was totally exonerated, by the way. Just a waste of time and money.
You were impeached over that. You were impeached over
He
that.
said
But
he
let's
liked
stay on topic here,
Zelensky?
Mr. President,
That's
because
ridiculous.
The question is, would you give Ukraine weapons
I was
and
impeached
funding?
by a crazy woman named Nancy
But the
Pelosi.
question here is, would you give Ukraine weapons and funding if you were
I
elected?
would sit down. Let me just put it a nicer way. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in 1 day, 24 hours.
How would you settle that war in 1 day?
Because I'll meet with Putin, I'll meet with
'Cause it's
Zelensky.
fake.
They
It was
both have
fake to begin
weaknesses
with.
and they both have strengths. And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be
Do
absolutely
you
over.
want Ukraine to win this war?
Oh my God.
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country. Now,
That's such like a monstrous
Can I just
question.
follow up on that? You
But
said
one
you
of the
don't
things
think in
you have
terms
to
of
do is
winning
you
and
have to get
losing.
you have
Mr.
to get
President, can I
Europe.
just follow up on that because that's a really important
Excuse me,
statement
let me
you
just
just
follow
made
up.
there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying, Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying. And I'll have that done. I'll have that done in 24 hours. I'll have it done. You need the power of the presidency to do it.
But you won't say that you want Ukraine to win.
You
said
know what
when
I'll
you were
say?
in-
I'll
when you
say
were in
this.
office-
I want Europe to put up more money because they're in for 20 billion. We're in for 170, and
that's
they
not
should
an
be.
answer about who
And they
should
should
win the war.
equalize. They have plenty of money. They should equalize. I got with NATO.
But I'm
when I
asking you
sat
about
down, I got
Ukraine
them
right
to
now,
put up
Mr.
hundreds
President.
of billions of dollars that they weren't paying under Obama and Bush And all of these other presidents, that's why they're able to help them fight the war, because of the money I got. But I
let's
want
talk about
Europe
what's happening in Ukraine,
excuse
Mr.
me, I want
President.
Europe to put up more money, because they're laughing at us. They think we're a bunch of jerks. We're spending $170 billion for faraway land, and they're right next door to that land, and they're in for 20. I don't think so.
When it comes to what's happening there, when you were in office, you said that you respected President Putin. Do
Yeah,
you still respect him today?
He made a tremendous mistake. He was a smart guy, you know. I remember I said he was smart, she was smart.
What was his
he
mistake?
said President Xi of China, right, is smart. Okay, 1.5 billion people. He's the ruler of 1.5 billion people. I said, yeah, he's a smart guy. How dare he say he's smart? Of course he's smart. They want you to say he's a stupid person. Okay, he's not a stupid person. He's very smart. He's very cunning. And Putin made a bad mistake, in my opinion.
What was his mistake?
His mistake was going in. He would have never gone in if I was president. We used to talk about it there.
Do you believe that he is a war criminal?
What?
Do you believe that Putin is a war criminal? He's responsible for the deaths of thousands
Well,
of
I think
Ukrainians
I think it's
and
something
civilian children.
that should not be discussed now. It should be discussed
litmus
later.
test?
Because right now we have to get a war. If you say he's a war criminal, it's going to be a lot tougher to make a deal to get this thing stopped. Because if he's going to be a war criminal where people are going to go and grab him and execute him, he's going to fight a lot harder than he's fighting, you know, under the other circumstance. That's something to be discussed at a later date.
Isn't it
Right now,
important
we
to
want
call
to
it
get
what
that
it
war
is?
settled. And I'm not talking about the money either. I'm talking about all the lives that are being, the number of people being killed in that war is far greater than you're hearing. When they blow up a city and those buildings come pouring down and then they say 2 people were injured, no, hundreds and thousands of people are being killed. And we have to get that war settled.
We have more with former President Trump. Right after this, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with questions from voters right after that.
Eric, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, well, I thought we were only in for an hour. Seems like there's a lot more coming. That's what she made it seem like. And obviously, look, I can't remember what's happening. I should have taken notes. I should have remembered this stuff. But in that most recent little segment there, she's clearly fishing for him so they can get something of him saying that he supports Putin or he wants Russia to win the war. I mean, it's just so obvious. And I guess to Rob's point, and then maybe one of the comments here, like, I mean, who still looks at this? Who still looks at anything coming out of CNN and says, yeah, you know what? I trust them. I think they, I think they're on the level. I think they're shooting it straight, and they have the interest of the general public at mind. That ship sailed, bro. So even as they're pretending, so they can write all the headlines and say they had Trump on and it's water under the bridge. But when you watch this, it's very clear that they still have a huge agenda. And I don't know if the new guy, what's his name? You guys know the new CEO or whatever?
Of CNN? No,
I forget it.
I forget.
Licht. Chris Licht, I believe. Liked, whatever. LIC. What Chris Licht, I believe his name is. But do we think for one split second that he's actually on the level and he's actually trying to clean things up? Because I said a long time ago in one of my old videos that they need to start fresh, bro. They need to change the name. They need to change the logo. They need to change the colors, the mailroom, the chefs, the janitors. Everybody needs to go. And this is hardcore proof of that they haven't changed one bit.
Rob, I'm guessing you're happy about the Zelensky letting that slide?
Yeah, so I want more direct answers from him. Like he's kind of playing, like he said a lot of things that are true, but I think he should like it kind of annoys me how he's like, yeah, like me and Zelensky get along well or something along those lines. Like, no, Zelensky's a puppet. He should denounce that guy at all costs. And I feel like he's like, kind of playing both sides there and not being direct. But at the same time, that lady is beyond bias. Like that lady, like Eric said, clearly fishing for an answer, clearly just, again, like why did he agree to do it here on CNN when he could have done it on like a much more respectable platform? And he's just giving them views. Like why give CNN views? Like CNN sucks. Like he should just, anyone still watching CNN is beyond help. Like no one's gonna switch.
What happened to San Francisco? Wow, I'm sorry for that. Did you see now CNN is going to do a documentary on San Francisco, that might be some content in itself. And Andrew, before you get started, I just look. Obviously, I mean, Trump for whatever 70 years of his life was not a politician, and now he is. So unfortunately, yeah, he kind of has to walk this middle ground and do these mealy mouth answers, which he's still, I think, not to like do the whataboutism, but I still think in the grand scheme, he's still better than 95% of other politicians. I mean,
But that's not
look at
saying
Kamala
much,
Harris,
though.
so-
Like,
No, well, the bar is low, bro. The bar is low. The bar is, I mean, the bar. Look, like I would look. I got no. You could run 16 background checks on me. You're not gonna find anything. Maybe a graffiti charge from 2004 or something stupid like that. But how is everybody so compromised that we don't have regular people running? Is it just a money issue? What's actually happening here? And I also have something to say about the abortion thing, but we'll wait till later. Let's see what they got going on now.
President Trump, we have a lot
How they're
more.
standing. Or did we just lose it there right away?
I don't know
that
if
you're
you
facing. We
paused it.
talked about
There we
others
go.
at the top, but this is the special counsel's investigation into classified
CNN.
documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago. Why did you take those documents with you when you left the White
I
House?
have every right to under the Presidential Records Act. You have the Presidential Records Act. I was there and I took what I took, and it gets declassified. Biden, on the other hand, he has 1,850 boxes. He had boxes sent to Chinatown, where they don't speak even English in that Chinatown we're talking about.
Can I got to stop you right there,
nobody talks about him, they
because
talk about us. Just so you understand, I had every right to do it. I didn't make a secret of it. You know, the boxes were stationed outside of the White House. People were taking pictures of the GSA of the various
I got
people.
to stop you right there,
that
though,
were
because the
moving.
Presidential Records Act, which is not well known to a lot of people, I read it. It does not say that you can take documents with you. It says actually that they
It
are the
says you-
property of the
It says
federal
you talk,
government.
you
when
negotiate,
leave.
you make a deal. It's not criminal, by the
It
way.
does not- it does
The
not say that you
Presidential
can
Records Act is
negotiate.
not criminal. And just
It
so
does
you
not
know,
say you can negotiate to
just so
take the
you-
documents with you.
can I tell you?
So that's the
Just so
third
you
thing they're trying to hit
understand,
him
the
on.
Presidential Records Act is not criminal. I took
He
the
can
documents I'm
declassify
allowed to. You know who else took them?
anytime he
Obama
wants.
took them. Nixon took them.
Obama did
Reagan
not take
took them.
documents.
Oh, he didn't?
The difference here
He
that I'd
didn't?
like
Take
to
a look.
note, the
Reagan
National
took
Archive
them.
says that President Obama
Even
did
Jimmy
not
Carter,
take
even Mike
documents.
Pence had some documents, and he's a
You
very
referenced
honorable
Pence,
guy.
you referenced
But you know who
Biden.
took them more than anybody is Joe Biden. He has 1,800 boxes,
That's
and
not
nobody
accurate,
even
Mr.
knows where
President,
they
and you
are.
know That's that.
not an accurate number, Mr.
And nobody
President.
talks about him.
Mr. President,
And they
that's not accurate.
put a rough guy on us, and in
I
the
think it's
meantime, they have
important, Mr.
nobody.
President, to actually set the record straight here. They took documents, including President or Vice President Pence. When they realized they had documents, they turned them back over. The difference is that you waited to turn yours over, and it was
Excuse
a year and a
me.
half effort that included a subpoena with those documents. One question about
It
what happened
included
when
a
you had
raid
those
on
documents.
my house. That's what it included.
But
They
you had
didn't raid.
you'd gotten a
they didn't
subpoena
raid
and they had not
Biden's
been
house.
turned over yet.
They didn't raid Biden's house. You know what happened? They put him in the house. That's the one with the Corvette, where the documents were laying all over the floor. That was fine. And you know who happens to be at Mar-a-Lago? Secret Service, and they're phenomenal. I have Secret Service. He didn't have Secret Service. The other thing, the vice president cannot declassify. He didn't have the right to declassify. He has documents from when he was a senator. And even Democrat senators say, I can't believe it. No, I went by the Presidential Records Act.
That's not
and
what
we
the
were
Presidential
negotiating
Records
with
Act
NARA.
says. That's not what it says,
And
Mr.
NARA has
President.
red flagged a thing called the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights because they consider them
Mr. President,
dangerous
that's
documents.
not what it
Those
says,
are
and
the
I
people
should
we're
note.
dealing
And
with.
I should note that there is a special counsel investigating your document situation, also President Biden's document situation. When it comes to your documents, did you ever show those classified documents to anyone?
Not really. I would have the
Confess to
right
this
to.
crime.
By the way, they were
What do you mean, not
declassified
really?
after. Not that I can think of. Let me just tell you, I have the absolute right to do whatever I want with them. I have the right. I was negotiating with NARA. Do you know what NARA is?
The National Archives.
Extremely
But you don't
left
negotiate
group
with
of
them.
people. Extremely left. And I was negotiating with
They're
them.
not
All of a
left.
sudden, they
embodies
raided my
CNN.
house. They didn't raid the house of Joe Biden. They didn't raid Obama.
But Joe Biden didn't ignore a subpoena to get those documents back like
Joe
you
Biden
did. And so
took
that's the question.
1,850 boxes.
But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return
Are
them.
you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
You
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Can you answer why you held on to the documents?
I was negotiating, and we were talking to NARA, that's Washington, to bring whatever they want. They can have whatever they want. When we left Washington, we had the boxes lined up on the sidewalk outside for everybody. People are taking pictures of them. Everybody knew we were taking those boxes. And the GSA, the government service, the GSA was the one taking them. They brought them down to Mar-a-Lago. We were negotiating with NARA. All of a sudden, they raid our house. When Biden had his documents, he won't give back the 1,850 boxes. And you're going to find some real gems in there.
But it was
so
Biden who
have
alerted
all
them that
these
he
different
had the
sets of-
documents.
all
The
these
National
different
Archives
sets of-
reached out to you to get your documents back. Why did you not turn them over when you got a subpoena
Because we were
asking for you to turn
negotiating
them
with
over?
them. We were negotiating with them as per the Presidential Records Act. We were negotiating with NARA.
That's not what
Very
the
nice
Presidential Records
people,
Act says. I've
but they've
seen
got to
it.
love our Constitution a little bit more, and they shouldn't red flag it, by the way. Very nice people. We were negotiating with NARA, and that's what the Presidential Records Act says, because Richard Nixon, surprisingly, had problems, and he had a lot of problems dealing with NARA, and they ended up passing legislation called the Presidential Records Act just for this kind of a thing. We were dealing with them. We were talking. Excuse me. Wait a minute. Wait. We were talking to them. We would have done it, but all of a sudden they raided the house. Now, why hasn't the FBI raided Biden?
But I just explained to you why. No. It's because he's the one. They alerted the government that they had those documents and had them come and get the documents from his house. My question for you, though, when it comes to documents, do you still have any classified documents in your possession?
Are you ready?
Do you?
No, I don't have anything. I have no classified documents. And by the way, they become automatically declassified when I took them. But
no,
why?
You have to declassify
let me ask
them.
you a question. Why is it that Biden had 9 boxes in Chinatown? And he gets a lot of money from China. Why is that? And why aren't people? Why aren't people bringing that up? And why don't they put this guy Jack Smith and his group of thugs? Why don't they put him in charge of that?
I need to stop you right there because there's no evidence of what you just said there. What you're referring to there is an office that he had after leaving the vice presidency. He had a temporary office. But I want to ask you about another investigation that you're facing.
You don't know the subject.
I do know the subject.
He had one at University of Pennsylvania, but he also had 9 boxes in Chinatown.
That you're facing, which is the one that's happening in Georgia, where they are investigating there your efforts to overturn the election results in the state of Georgia.
I did nothing wrong. It was a perfect phone call.
Let me finish my question. At the center of that is that call that you had with the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger.
Yeah, sure.
Given the fact that there are indictments expected to come in that case this summer, is that a call you would make
more
again
indictments.
today?
More indictments.
Yeah, I called questioning the election. I thought it was a rigged election. I thought it had a lot of problems. I had I guess he's Secretary of State. I called. Listen to this. There are like 7 lawyers on the call, many of them from there. We're having a call. We're having a normal call. Nobody said, oh, gee, he shouldn't have said that. Why? If this call was bad, I questioned the election.
You asked him to find you votes.
I didn't ask him to find anything.
We've heard the audio tape,
Mr.
President. There's an audio of you asking him to find you 11,000
I said, you owe me
votes.
votes because the election was rigged. That election was rigged. And if this call was bad, why didn't him and his lawyers hang up? How dare you say that? This was a perfect
Well, they were
phone
clearly
call.
concerned enough. They recorded the call, and I should note that, of course...
This was a call that was made to question the results of election. And when we can't make a call to question election results, then this country ought to just forget about it.
You weren't just questioning the election results.
I was
you were
questioning
asking
the
him
election.
to find you votes. And I should note that there is no evidence of fraud. There is no rigged election in the state of Georgia. I want to get back to the audience, though, Mr. President, because those are false claims you're making about what happened in Georgia. Jordan Sullenberger is here. He's an undeclared voter from Hollis. He voted for you in 2020. Jordan, what is your question for President Trump tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Thank you very much.
I'm 26. I'm a veteran. I help manage a private aviation company.
You want a job?
I'd love one, yeah.
I'm looking for somebody very good.
I'm not for mandates or government interference in private business, but I've seen Republicans going after us like DeSantis after Disney.
Right.
What would you do as president to protect us from government interference?
Well, I'm the one that really wants to protect you. All of these fake investigations of me are about election interference. They think because I'm leading Biden by 11 points, 7 points, 9 points, I'm leading DeSanctimonious by
But it doesn't matter
a
because
lot.
voting is fake.
by 40 points or 45 points. I think he ought to just relax and take it easy and think about the future, because right now his future is not looking so good. I will tell you this. We are really putting it to Biden, but he's putting it to himself, because the economy stinks, inflation is horrible, and the border is a disaster. And by the way he got out of Afghanistan was the single most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Mr. President, I have one more question for you here tonight, and I think while we're in front of the voters here in New Hampshire, this is a fundamental question for you. You are running in the 2024 race. If you are the Republican nominee and you are in that 2024 race, will you commit tonight to accepting the results of the 2024 election?
Yeah, if I think it's an honest election, absolutely I would.
Will you commit to accepting the results of the election regardless of the outcome?
You want me to answer
And
it
there we
again?
have
If
it.
I think it's an honest election, I would be honored to. And right now we are so far ahead of both Democrat and Republican. And you know what? If I don't win, this country is going to be in big trouble. It's so sad to see what's happening.
But no commitment there on the accepting the results regardless of the outcome.
If it's an honest election, correct, I will.
Okay, so not committing to accepting the 2024 election results or acknowledging what happened in 2020.
Go ahead.
President Trump, I want to thank you for coming here tonight. This is an important conversation with voters to hear and to have. Thank you to our audience and to our host, St. Anselm College. CNN's coverage continues with Anderson Cooper and Jake Tapper.
All right. That ends on 9/11.
Thank you very much, Katie. Good job.
Good job, he says.
Thank you, Katie.
We got Woody Harrelson in the audience.
I like you guys. We love New Hampshire. Thank you, Woody. Good luck, Woody.
Thanks, everyone.
You're looking there at St. Anselm College in Manchester, New Hampshire. Tonight's
All
CNN
right.
Townhall.
Let me get this out of my ear. That was great. So final thoughts
that was
here.
Not great. That was awful.
Let me go first. Let's do about a minute each, and then we got some. Then we'll close on the latest Tucker Carlson leak, another Media Matters leak, whatever you want to call it, of Tucker behind the scenes on the hot mic. So what I wanted to say is Caitlin Collins is what I'm going to focus on here, because I think there's no new information that came out in that whole thing. Maybe some people didn't know quite about the Biden classified documents. She spoke in a way where it was like she needed to get that last word in and, put her fact in and then move on to the next subject. She'll say there's actually no evidence to that. But I also wanted to ask you, and as a person who's hosted a lot of stuff and interviewed a lot of people, it makes me feel like she's very selfish and she can't allow the guest to, say what the guest wants. If he's lying, and people can easily find that out by Googling or maybe Yandexing if you want to get the truth from Russia. If he's lying and people could go easily find that out, or if it's an obvious lie, then people are going to find that out on their own. I don't think the host needs to sit there and be like, actually, that's not true. Actually, 1,850 boxes isn't the correct number. Actually, that's not what the document says. I read it. There's a difference between challenging and hosting, and she's not there to debate him, I think. And a few points towards the beginning, she was a little bit better. But as it went on, I felt like she got worse and worse. And especially with the classified documents thing, I felt like she acted like the government, the National Archives had no idea you had classified documents, Mr. Trump. The White House in Washington and Nancy Pelosi and all of them, they had no idea about this. You never told them. So how could they know? And then he's, of course, telling her, she kind of looks like Dylan Mulvaney, telling her that everybody saw them and everybody took pictures of them. So I think it's very disappointing, but I think she really embodied CNN, whereas they take, that meme where the camera's focused on the heel and a knife of a person, and when you expand it, it's actually somebody being stabbed as opposed to the other way around. As a person for CNN, she perfectly embodied what they do as a network, and they focus on this extremely narrow angle and act as if that's the entire point of view of everybody. And then she tries to present that to the audience. So that's actually wrong, Mr. Trump. All he's saying is lies. Everything you say is a lie. There's no truth to whatever you're saying, even though I know you're being exaggerating and hyperbolic. 1,850 is not the perfect number. It's not actually the correct number. And as I said during the stream, I don't know if people could hear it. Imagine being her friend. Imagine being married to her now. Maybe she's so fake on air that she's completely different in person. I don't know. But could you imagine sitting next to a friend and you're having an argument with them, and they say, actually, you're completely full of shit. Here's what actually happened. But let's move on to the next subject. Let's eat dinner now. Rob, you go first. We've been putting Eric first a lot. Black Lives Matter. Go ahead.
That's racist.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, there we go.
Cool. So yeah, as you touched, like, lady was clearly just beyond biased, clearly just a pathetic network. Again, I don't know why, like, he should not have accepted that, should have went to a more neutral network and elevated someone else. But my opinion is just, if you already hated Trump, you'll hate him more because that biased lady interjected every time. Any person that's neutral could see that was a very biased anchor there that was interviewing him. But the people that loved him will see that and they'll love him more. But I feel like that's like the point of this, is just like, it's another distraction. It's just like, get people riled up about this again while the economy is collapsing, like while all this other BS is happening behind the scenes. I would have liked them to ask more hardball questions about like the vaccine and stuff like that, instead of just like things that we can all agree on, that like, obviously he's better than Biden on like the border, and obviously Biden's terrible. But it's just like, I feel like liberals hate him for ridiculous reasons, and conservatives think he's a god, and because they see how fake the media is and how they misconstrue whatever he says. But I don't know. I'm just in the middle on him. I feel he's not this hero that a lot of these conservatives think, and he's not as bad as a lot of these liberals think. I don't know. I would like an honest, like, reporter to interview him, not like a clearly biased piece of garbage from CNN. But yeah.
Okay. Well, to your point, where are we finding any of these honest? What neutral network even exists? Right. I think that's unfortunately, we've crossed the Rubicon. Those are gone. I don't think that exists. And I think I can't even think right now off the top of my head of a network that would even pretend to be neutral, right? I think we're at this point where it's going to be very clearly one way or the other, which is fine as long as they are truthful about that, which obviously CNN can't do. Now they are pretending to be arbiters of truth, right? Like, yeah, well, that's just wrong, right? What was it? It was only a couple of weeks ago, right? What was it, ABC or was it NBC, who just decided they were going to interview RFK Jr. and then come out and say, well, we had to censor some of that because he was going to tell you something that we don't think you should hear. I mean, it's all completely through the roof. It's all gone. I mean, we've jumped the shark, we've crossed the Rubicon, whatever you want to call it. Those days are gone. That's why they love censorship so much. That's why so many people are popping up on social media, and it's like whack-a-mole out there. I guess it's been a little bit better since Elon, maybe a tiny bit. I don't use Twitter, even though I should. Neither here nor there. And I just don't think. I don't think as much. Look, I do have some bones to pick with Donald Trump. I shouldn't say that. I do have some bones to pick. But when it comes to just this sad, lesser of a few evils conversation, I think, unfortunately, if we're going to operate in this world, he is the lesser of,
For
I
sure.
don't know, two or three evils, I guess. What's that?
I agree with you. I definitely agree he's the lesser of two evils. But and again, I loved Trump. I voted for him proudly, got my family to vote for him both times. But there's very real reasons that there's a lot of conservatives that are questioning Trump now. It's not like, DeSantis is paying us, or like, just we're fake. No, like, there's a lot of things he signed off on printing trillions of dollars, more than we've ever printed. No one asked him any questions about that. No one asked him any questions if he still stands by this vaccine, that anyone who's followed this knows that it's not nearly as safe or effective as they claimed it was, and he's still saying it was saved 100 million lives.
Well, that's just not true, Mr. President. That's just not true. That's what that lady would say.
Yeah, well, I agree, but like no one even asked. They just asked things that like that were like I didn't learn any new things from that. That was just all just like a distraction, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and I would say to that point, did this didn't turn anybody off from Donald Trump, and it certainly didn't turn anybody on to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps it was another just distraction or whatever you want to call it. Fine, and we're all here creating content from it. So whatever, they win this round. But I think on the last thing that she said about, right, they know the questions to ask, right? So first we had the abortion question, like will you federally ban this? And he danced around it. He obviously did not give a straight answer. And look, I don't really care either way on that. But then at the end, she says, are you going to accept the results? And that is obviously, that's very clearly a catch-22.
Yeah.
Like when we steamroll you, when we steamroll Carrie Lake in Arizona and give it to a woman who told you that she was far too good to even tell you any of her platforms because she knows the machine's going to work for her. When we steamroll you, are you going to accept it? And if he says no, well, then he's an election denier off the top. And if he says yeah, then they say, all right, let's steamroll him. It doesn't matter. So it's a complete and total mess.
It is rigged. It's completely like that, and yeah, it's BS. But I just feel like it's like Trump's the perfect polarizing person. I feel like that they just keep throwing in the news cycle to like
not
divide
even that
people.
Polarizing, bro. No. They created a polarizing.
I agree. I agree, but like they're just. I don't think that they like hate him as much as they pretend to hate him. I just think that they like do this to get people riled up, like on both sides. Like one side fights for him, thinks he's a hero, the other side thinks he's the worse than Hitler, and it's just like it works every time. They just throw him on the CNN, and then it just outrages people. But it's like, yeah, he's much better than liberals give credit for, and he's worse than a lot of conservatives want to acknowledge. So
and well, to your point, I wouldn't have had okay, and this is all conspiratorial. This is all tinfoil hat dream sequence stuff. But in my mind, and I have no way to prove this, if Hillary Clinton would have won in 2016, Rona wouldn't be a thing. That's just my theory. There's no way I can prove it. But up until Rona, I didn't have a problem with anything he was doing. And then he became a pharmaceutical salesman, and there's your problem.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's enough. That's not enough to turn off. We're a little bit, obviously, we're following this perhaps a little too closely for, sanity. But for most regular conservatives, for most people that I see driving around the streets of Arizona, they don't care, whatever. They just know that Joe Biden is an empty suit hack who's gonna send their money to Ukraine.
But that's and he didn't give a direct answer on that either, though. Like he should have said, no, we should not be sending nearly this much on Ukraine. He gave like a curveball answer. He's like, well, they need to send more. He didn't say that we shouldn't be involved with that. Like he's like, he kind of played both sides on that there. And I just disagree with that. You got to stand hard and say, no, like we should not be sending Ukraine a dime. We should stay out. But
I agree. I 100% agree. But I also think, and look, I've never said this before, but maybe I'm not quite old enough to even understand the last time anybody took a hard line. I mean, this is politics. This is literally what they do. They're weirdo little, reptilian creatures. I can't remember the last time any politician has taken one hard.
But don't we hold Trump to a different standard and say he's not a politician? Like this is why we love him, because he's not a politician. He says the truth. He doesn't play BS. He isn't politically correct. And he's becoming a politician, in my opinion. He's given like kind of two-sided answers. The Donnie that I loved in 2016 was like more, now he plays both sides of it. And I don't know. I think we need some fresh blood in there that won't do that. That's truly, I don't know. I don't trust that he's an out.
Or is that somebody else?
I don't fully trust DeSantis either. I like what he did more than Trump the last few years in terms of like lockdowns and stuff. but I still.
Well, he was DeSantis rewrote history a little bit on that. He did. He did.
All right.
He did.
Let's,
I experienced it myself.
Sanctimonious. All right. So we're gonna get to the Tucker Carlson clip here before we go too late into the evening. So Media Matters released 3 videos already. One was Tucker talking to Piers Morgan before their show they did together, where he said that they wanted to discuss.
I'm voting for Afro Man.
They wanted to discuss sexual techniques. Another one was him flipping off Media Matters, and the other one was him saying before Tucker Carlson today that he has postmenopausal fans that will tell him if he looks good. So all swings and huge misses by Media Matters. I did a poll on my page the other day asking if people thought it made him look better, worse, or the same. Overwhelmingly, people said that it makes him look better. So now there's a 4th video, and here's Tucker Carlson, another damaging video of Tucker Carlson behind the scenes.
I did. I talked to her at great length. It was actually pretty funny. I said, she tried to get, I was like, she's got a lot of liberals working over there. And, they see this as war. And we're the main force on the other side. And that's crazy. If you've got pronouns in your Twitter bio, you shouldn't work here because we can't trust you because you're on the other side. And she goes, well, who? And I said, I'm not going to name names because I don't know who did it. And I'm definitely not going to cast aspersions on someone unfairly. Just because you're liberal doesn't mean you did this. It does mean you shouldn't work here. And Roger would never put up with this shit. Why would you do that? Do you know what I mean? They see this as war. It's like, I'm an actual liberal. I'm totally fine being our makeup artist is like a screaming lefty. No, but I'm not that way, but they are that way. And I said, I'm not ashamed of anything I said.
You do not look like you recently had COVID.
I
you look fresh-faced and healthy.
But do you know what I mean, Justin? If you've got that horrible guy who was just horrible, who was Judge Janine's guy. That guy is like a screaming left-wing lunatic. Why does he work here? What? He totally dicked over his anchor, and then we expect he's not going to dick over the network? I don't have specific information on it, but I would... It's just... Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm always telling my children, what the truth is. You can feel it. Don't lie to yourself.
You were in here?
Then it leads right into his show.
She's so great. Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson.
So that's it. Again, it's him. The smoking gun there is supposed to be him saying, if you have pronouns in your bio, then you shouldn't work at this network. Anyone who doesn't have pronouns in their bio agrees that anyone who has pronouns in their bio is a crazy person.
Yeah.
It's something so weird. It's like, I don't know, if you were to write something and you had business cards and you had, it's way more weird than having Braille on your business card because there's a lot more blind people than there are trans people. It's like catering to something that's such a unique thing in such an offshoot way. Well, in my email signature, I have pronoun bios or pronouns because when do you refer to somebody's pronouns in an email? You don't say, hey, guy.
It's just a way of displaying that you've been brainwashed.
Exactly.
That's
So
literally what I say.
Tucker's now doing his show. It's going to be posted on Twitter. Elon says they don't have any deal. I assume they might have some deal. I have some thoughts on that. Let's get your guys' thoughts on whether it's good or not, or whether you agree or not for Tucker to be doing a show on Twitter. Eric, you go first this time.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. What do we think he was going to do? That he was just going to... He was going to get kicked off Fox News and we were never going to hear from him again. Everybody knew that wasn't the case. And these clips that Media Matters or whatever is trying to put out, it's obviously, for lack of a better term, it is just a nothing burger. It does not matter. This is not... Did the good folks over at Media Matters think that they were going to sway some Tucker Carlson fans who are watching him every night at 8 p.m. and they were going to say, "Oh, you know what? I'm never going to watch this guy again." Obviously not. It's just them throwing red meat to the base. It's complete. It's absolute nonsense. It's something, and this is why we're going to probably see a couple more, because they know that in a couple weeks, a month or two, it's going to be completely all water under the bridge, and Tucker's probably going to be on Twitter by himself, getting more views than he ever did on on Fox News. So it completely it doesn't matter. Now I think there are some rumblings that Fox News is trying to silence him through the next election cycle because of the contract that they're still paying him on. But I don't have the details on that. Go ahead and fact check me. I don't know exactly how it works, but the point is, it's a complete nothing burger, and nobody. Yes, you can throw red meat to the base, and they're going to be like, "Oh, he's such a mean racist," and you can show it to regular people who like Tucker Carlson, and they're not going to say, "I'm never going to watch him again." It's all complete nothingness.
Rob from Huey Media out there at a Wawa in Pennsylvania. To Eric's point about Media Matters, what were they thinking? Do you think that there is some sort of effort, and this is what I've pontificated on this show, for people to try to make Tucker into one of these unpalatable people for the mainstream right wing, the way an Alex Jones is or something, like where people might agree with him in on a lot of stuff, but talking about him on a mainstream right wing broadcast, like some companies in Canada won't talk about him. You might know who I'm talking about. Some companies in America won't talk about him. You might know who I'm talking about. One of which I'm talking about, I used to work for. Do you think there is an effort to, demonize him to the point that they won't talk about him?
Yeah, I mean, and anyone that gives out any truth nowadays is gonna be catching some stray bullets and just taking heat, just for for being real. And I feel like he was the most real voice that Fox had left, and now it's just now. I mean, I have no desire. I mean, I didn't really watch much anyway, but now that Tucker's gone, I feel like who's there, like, I don't know. It's just another, controlled network. And again, they're another network that pushes the war agendas and also the vaccine BS too. So I feel like Tucker was one of the few that kept it real. And now that he's on Twitter, I feel like I think more people need to be like, they don't, now it's like you're getting it straight from him. You don't need this Fox brand middleman that has to like approve what they say. And I love it. I think that's the future. We need more direct from, news direct from the creator and direct from the source, instead of going through companies that, you can't say certain things. And I love the move, honestly.
See, my problem is I, like, as much as everybody big ups Twitter, they still don't have Alex Jones. They still don't have Kanye. No matter what you think of them, it's not what Elon said it was going to be. It's not. He
Agreed.
said free speech extremist.
Yeah,
He
but
is a
it's like
mean
you have
number.
nothing. I mean, we have to live in reality, bro. Yeah. I don't even use Twitter, so I can't even really speak to it. But it's like, yes, of course, it's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But it's the same thing. Like, yeah, did Trump answer all the questions? No. Would you like to hear better? Yes. But like, when we're unfortunately, we are confined to this reality, and we don't have many other choices. I guess we could just completely ignore all of it, right? But I don't know if that works either. So right now, as bad as it sounds, as maybe establishment as it sounds, like we're stuck playing within the confines of what we've been given, unfortunately, until something really changes. I don't know. There's a bunch of platforms out. You can talk about Rumble and Valuetainment offering Tucker $100 million, and there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts, but right now, unfortunately, this is the the lemons that we're sucking on.
Maybe Parler was right, man. If you recall, Parler, when they shut down, they got a new owner, and they're like, anyone who
Shout out, yeah, I'm voting for Kanye.
anyone
and
who
Afro
thinks
Man.
that a
That's what
right
I'm
wing
gonna do.
conservative Twitter is a viable business option is not realistic. Thank you, Rob at Huey Media, for watching. His page is constantly growing. Please go to him for clips and analysis. Report and Opine on Instagram, as Eric Andrew does for me on Instagram, and AndrewSaysTV.com and Twitter. And of course, thank you for watching and subscribing. So much happiness, so many viewers. They did it. I couldn't believe Caitlin Collins did it. That bitch. I can't believe it. Sign up for us on patreon.com/uopod. Make sure you're subscribed on our YouTube channel and all our social medias. Patreon.com/uopod. We do an extra podcast there every week. And then our regular live stream podcast airs every Sunday at what time, Eric? 5 p.m. Eastern?
2 p.m. Pacific.
And whatever Arizona time. It's a crazy time in Arizona. They've got daylight savings. They don't have daylight savings. Elections are stolen. They have a hockey team for no reason. Nobody knows what's going on in Arizona. We will see you guys next time.
Turn it up, Jordan.